There's been heavy fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut in the eastern Donetsk region. The deputy mayor claims Russian soldiers tried to storm the city from several directions. He also says people are living in dire conditions. The city has been without electricity, gas and running water for nearly 2 months. More than 120 civilians have been killed there since the war began. Let's bring in Asad Beg, who is in Kryvyi Rih in central Ukraine. Asad, good to see you. Bring us up to date with the latest infighting in Bakhmut.
Yes, Bakhmut has seen some of the most intense fighting that it's seen over the last few months. Now, we were there back in May. The Russians were trying to take it then. We were there just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And again, the Russians were pushing on several different directions to try and take that strategic city of Bakhmut. If they take it, it gives them access. The roads give them access to other parts of the country. Now, some of the footage that we've been seeing is of Ukrainian forces still in that city, but the buildings around them have taken a real battering. In fact, when we were there, it was the same situation. A lot of the buildings had been destroyed, and as you said, no electricity, water or gas. Now, some of the Wagner group, members of the Wagner group, that private company linked to the Kremlin, have said that Russian forces have begun to enter the city, although it's very difficult to independently verify which side is correct at this current point in time. When the fighting is so intense, it's difficult to get access to that city because it's just too dangerous. But we're also hearing that alongside artillery fire, there's a lot of trench fighting going on as both sides try to fortify their positions, also getting ready for the winter.
There's also been a lot of focus on the counteroffensive going on in Kherson. What is the situation there?
Well, the Ukrainians say that their counteroffensive is continuing. Authorities in Kherson say that they've seen some of the most intense artillery fire that they've seen over the last week. Now, the Ukrainians claim that they shot down 2 helicopters, although, again, very difficult to independently verify. The Ukrainians also say that they've destroyed Russian vehicles, resupplies and defenses, as well as a command post in the city of Melitopol. Now, the Russians have been evacuating civilians, a move that Russian President Vladimir Putin has publicly endorsed. But the Ukrainians say any reports or suggestion that the Russian forces are withdrawing from Kherson, are premature. They believe the Russian forces that are withdrawing are being replaced by other forces. Now, Kherson is very important to Russia strategically and politically. It's the only regional capital they've managed to take since the start of the war. It's the only place Russian forces occupy west of that Dnipro River. Kherson is a gateway to Crimea that Russia annexed back in 2014. And it is a big if at this point in time, the Ukrainians managed to take Kherson, it will expose other Russian forces elsewhere in the country. Now, elsewhere in Ukraine, there was a missile strike by the Russians in the city of Zaporizhia. A commercial building was destroyed and 1 person was killed. But as I say, the fighting around the east and the south is still very intense, and both sides claiming that they're making advances.
OK, thank you for that update. Asad Beg in Kryvyi Rih in central Ukraine. Meanwhile, it was another night of darkness for the people in the capital, Kyiv, and 7 other regions across Ukraine. After days of scheduled blackouts, the state energy company announced it wasn't enough. It's warned of indefinite emergency outages. Russia has repeatedly carried out missile and drone attacks on Ukraine's power facilities. Western allies have condemned the attacks, especially in the lead up to winter. Let's go to Harry Fawcett, who is in Kyiv. So, Harry, firstly, let's talk about the blackouts. What is the latest with that? How have you been affected?
Well, yes, what was the original plan as of a couple of weeks ago was that there would be up to 4 hour long scheduled blackouts cycling through various parts of various neighborhoods through the capital. As the situation has got worse, there was talk of those being extended. They don't always happen. They don't always last as long as they potentially might, but they have been getting more frequent. Certainly, just anecdotally here in our neighborhood in central Kyiv, they've been getting more frequent in recent days. And yes, now there is this extra bit of information that these could turn into indefinite, unpredictable, unscheduled blackouts because the strain on the energy system has become so great. And that is all because of this pretty relentless campaign of strikes on the energy infrastructure. We were talking to the energy minister just the other day. He was saying that some important sort of electricity nodes in the system were being struck up to 10 times repeatedly. They get fixed and they're struck again. And he said that this wasn't being planned by military specialists. This was being planned potentially even in real time by those with real energy expertise and substantial knowledge of Ukraine's Soviet-era power system.